if I could stress one thing to every publisher and every creator is, I get Diamond's rules made things more difficult, and it made you have to choose between variance and returnability. Please choose returnability.
Come on and visit for any occasion. Don't keep patting down waiting. Comics and conversation. Keep the conversation moving along. Keep reading comics, keep your local store strong. If it's hard, then it's a job for the challengers. Comics and conversation, y'all.
From Challengers Comics and Conversation in Chicago, this is Contest of Challengers, a comics industry business podcast with Patrick Brower and W. Dal Bush.
Welcome to a very special edition of the Contest of Challengers podcast, in which Dal runs the whole show. Dal, take it away.
I don't have anything for this week.
Thanks for listening.
Keep reading comics.
I don't have anything. That was my way of saying, it's up to you, buddy.
Oh, gosh. I wish there had been some forewarning for that.
Is there ever forewarning? I don't have forewarning.
You don't, that's true.
Just sit down and start talking.
It's true. What happened this week in comics? We still don't have the DC catalog for our Comic Suite and Pullbox customers.
Which, I admit, we're recording this on September 3rd, so it's like, it's only 3 days into the month. But we've had everything else how long? And more than that, when did the catalog go up for public visibility?
Like 3 weeks ago.
Like 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Yet we still don't have the data to put into our system, so any single subscriber that wants to add a DC book
can't. Yeah, we haven't even sent out a notification to our customers saying, hey, the catalogs are live, because technically they're not all live. You can browse the DC catalog through DC Connect, and you can look at everything Diamond is distributing for the month, including Marvel books. But we can't put in any orders for DC stuff, so that's why we haven't notified anybody. And also, obviously, anyone who's using Pullbox, the DC stuff isn't there yet, so you can't really add any DC stuff.
Yeah, and that's not at all frustrating or literally handicapping us. And
yeah, one of the things we like to do each month is be able to go through the catalog and send out notifications to subscribers saying, hey, if you're down for Series A, Series B is coming out, and you might find interest in that, either because of overlapping creative teams or storylines that continue from one book to the other, or just stuff where we think, anyone who's reading something by this author might like this similar author that they don't know anything about yet. We can't do that until the catalogs are actually ready to take orders, and that means that instead of having 4 weeks to do that, we now have 2 weeks to do that at best.
At best.
Which means we're sending out, instead of like 1 or 2 emails a few days a week, we're sending out 3 emails a day just to get through everything in the catalog that we need to solicit orders for, basically.
I often look at how other stores present new product information to their clientele, mainly via social media.
Sure.
I don't go to a lot of comic stores' websites. I do have subscriptions to several stores' email newsletters, and some are great, some are terrible. Mm-hmm. And I think ours falls like square in the middle.
I think ours is really good.
Well, I think ours is okay. One of the things we don't do, which is not worth our time to do, is to have each title a link to a book, because A, they're not up on our website for pre-order or pre-sale or sale at all until the first half the week is over.
Right.
And I'm 100% fine with that.
Yeah.
Or B, we're not linking it to Diamond's website, so you can find out more about this, more information about this book.
Sure.
I don't know statistics, and I don't think we've looked, and I don't think I want to know how many people actually look at our webpage new release lists. Like, we send out an email to our whole email list that lists everything that's coming out for the week. It's on the website. But I think many people have their own way of finding information out, and it's not necessarily through our website. That being said, there are plenty of things we get that we don't ever just announce that we have. And part of that is because if you want to see what we have, come to the store.
That's a thing.
I mean, when you go clothes shopping, for example, and I mean you specifically, do you look online to see what they have before you go, or do you just go and see what they have?
In the instances where I go to a store instead of just shopping online for clothes, I will usually just go to a place and hope to find something that I'm looking for, something that looks interesting to me. I don't go to a clothing store with a set like list of things to get in mind. I have categories that I want to look
Yeah,
around.
you may be like, I need a new dress shirt, but you don't
Right.
say I need a new long sleeve solid red dress shirt.
Right.
You're like, you go in and see what fits the criteria.
Yeah, and that's sort of the difference. Like, if there's a specific thing I want, I'm more apt to look online. If I'm just shopping, I'll just go to a place.
For example, today we got in new Transformers figures of some indistinct wave. Somebody said, "Oh, is this the blah blah blah?" I go, "I don't know."
Kingdom Deluxe Class Wave 3. For anyone listening at home, who cares?
He said, "Are those Dinobots?" I'm like, "I think so. I don't know about Transformers." This one's called Wing Finder, and that may be the dumbest Transformer
I
name.
think it's Wing Finger.
Oh, really?
I think it might be.
That's even dumber.
I'd have to look.
Wow. I believe you. You're a Transformer expert compared to me. I think Wingfinger is incredibly stupid. The name, not the Transformer. I don't know what it is. I assume it's a pterodactyl.
Yeah, I think
It's got wings that are fingers. Like that sounds like a pterodactyl
you're
to me.
not gonna like this, but I believe it's part of a subclass called fossilizers, where they're like skeleton things that you kind of pull apart and attach to other things. So they don't transform in the traditional like, this is a car, and then I pull these parts out and rotate these things around,
Okay,
and now
well,
it's a robot.
skeletons don't have wings. Wings aren't bones.
But that's true. It's cartilage, right?
Yeah. So, I'm sorry, Hasbro.
That's the one place where
You've
Hasbro
ruined it.
Transformers are not scientifically accurate.
I bet they don't even use Energon. Do they?
I don't know. I assume they all do, though. If they're Transformers, traditionally they use Energon.
I loved looking at the invoice the other day and saying, "Are these for you?" You're like, "Yep." And then today you're like, "No, I just want one."
I think I said at the time, like, I think that wave there's only one that I wanted.
No, you said all of them, and I quote, "Doubles, please."
The entire case, thank you.
Doubles, please. So we got those.
Yeah.
We got some G.I. Joe Pop Finals. We got the Marvel Avengers Endgame Thor figure where he's a huskier, dare I say, portly gentleman.
Is it the one from the end of Endgame? That one?
Yeah,
Where he's like ready
in
for
the
battle?
full suit, yeah.
Got the top knot or
Yeah.
whatever. Okay.
So we have those, and I just, they're there. They're on the shelves. You find out by going in.
Yeah. They'll eventually, again, like you said, be on our website, but probably this Saturday.
I think it's is it? Do you want to put them in just because they got put in today?
Yeah, I can wait on them if you want.
But I mean, like that doesn't.
They wouldn't bother me.
Okay,
We haven't had a ton of interest in like toy stuff online.
sure, that's fine.
Occasionally something will sell, but I don't think we're going to see like people rushing to get them this Saturday.
Maybe if we're lucky, things will sell that we actually have.
That would be nice.
But
Sometimes.
why would that be different? So yeah, I mean, when we have a new product line, like greeting cards,
Sure.
we'll show those off because those we had made for the store or made ourselves, and it's definitely a Challenger's brand face forward type of product.
Yeah.
Or the new enamel pins we have, that's worth it. But the number of like stores that are very proactive in saying, "Hey, look, let me do a spotlight on this individual title that's coming out this week. You might be interested in it," something like that. I just don't have that bandwidth or that energy.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that theoretically in the future we'd be able to delegate to someone that would have more interest in it. One of the things that I think is potentially very cool that we could be able to do with Managed Comics, should that become a platform that we move over to, is that things like pre-orders would have specific landing pages on our Shopify store. So it'd be very easy for us to do a social media post saying like, hey, we're really excited about what's the furthest place from here. Here's the link to go to our site to pre-order it.
See, that seems beneficial.
Yeah, like that's the sort of thing that I can see us doing a lot more often when we have a really integrated way to send out that message, have someone click it, have someone sign up for the book without us having to get involved in the process, rather than the traditional, like, do we have to monitor Instagram messages to find out whether or not someone said, yeah, pull that for me, and then we have to go, I don't know who you are. This would obviate all that in favor of just, you click a link and you sign up for the book and it's done and we don't have to get involved in the process. Like, that would be very nice.
I like the not getting involved in the process. I had to tell a longtime club member today that we don't have the capabilities to just be like, oh, put me down for everything Garth Ennis.
Yeah, that's the thing that we've had to tell people a lot over the years. Usually when they sign up, because they're like, can I just get down for every... Like, yeah, Garth Ennis was one, and Warren Ellis prior to that. And it's just like, no, because there isn't like a button I can click. You're asking me to remember your specific, like, special request in perpetuity in a service where we have over 300 subscribers. Like, I can't do that.
Way back in the day when things were a lot more analog, you could create a title that just said, Garth Ennis, and sign people up to that.
Or you just scribble on someone's backer card.
But that didn't have to get tied to a product in a system.
Right.
It was basically just, a flow chart, a flow shark. Let's call it that.
Sure.
A flow shark that you could swim over to and feed it some chum and hope it doesn't bite you, and then it'll tell you who's down for what things.
That would be really helpful. Yeah. I would definitely consider bringing that shark on board in a full-time capability.
But now when things have to be, as technology increases, things have to get tied to a specific product.
Yeah, I mean, some of it I feel bad about because obviously you want to give that personal touch. You want someone to come in and go, hey, I always get Star Wars stuff. Can you just pull every Star Wars thing for me? And it's like, God, I'd love to help you out with that. But it's literally like, that's like almost a personal shopper thing. And it's like, we can't do that. Like,
I don't even know what Star Wars things are coming out. Like this upcoming week, there's a graphic novel coming out that I forgot was the manga.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I say I don't know. I knew at one point because I ordered it.
You didn't remember it.
I don't remember it.
Because there's too much stuff, and that's the thing. Like, the industry itself is too complex now. Like, the days of, 30 years ago, someone could just say, pull every Marvel book for me, and it's like, fine, that's easy enough to do. Although, actually, 30 years ago would be the cutoff point where it's like, that's where it started to get less easy to do. 40 years ago, you could do that. That would be easy.
Are you blaming me for this?
No.
That's when I started working in comics.
But, like, you and I both know, like, once you start hitting, like, 91, 92, that's when it's like, oh, there's a lot more Marvel books. Marvel's starting to see their market share decrease.
But back then, we didn't have a subscription service.
We really didn't, yeah.
But we had the Value Club where you save receipts.
But stores would do that, where they would you would have a subscriber that would say, give me every Marvel book, because every Marvel book was like 8 or 9 books a week, whatever, fine. Well, now you can't do that, because it's such a shifting target. Like, it's the amount of stuff each week, and ordering things in advance, and it's, if anything, someone saying, give me all Marvel stuff would be easier than a lot of the requests that we do get, where it is these open-ended things where I want every Star Wars thing. And it's like, okay, well, every Star Wars thing is a number of miniseries and ongoing series and one-shots that change every single month. And I have to, I don't want to have 50 different Post-it notes reminding me of the 50 different specific things that I can't ever put in the system, because there's 50 different, like, I want every Batman title. Here's a group that wants every Star Wars title. Here's a group that wants every Image #1. Here's a group that wants every Warren Ellis project, every Jeff Lemire project. Here's a group that wants every Viz Manga Volume 1. And it's like, there's a point where, and this is where we're kind of going with Managed Comics, is sort of pushing a little bit more of that stuff onto the customer, saying, here are the resources for you to do all that. To just look at the catalog every month, filter it by creators, filter it by publishers, filter it by formats, and then go through that and then find the things that you want and just order them. Like, that's where you can do that. All that information is there. If you want to know what Jeff Lemire is doing for a month, you can just as easily go through the catalog and search for Jeff Lemire and go, this.
We had a club member the other day email and say, hey, so what are my options for what if trades? Mm-hmm. And all I did was go to our website, do a classic what if search, and then send that link to them. Mm-hmm. And they responded today saying, oh man, that website looks great. They haven't bought anything from it, but It looks like it might be answering some questions moving forward, which is one of the things I always want to do, is let me give you the tools to answer this question for yourself.
Yeah. Teach a man to fish.
One of their questions also was, is there ever going to be another Warren Ellis Wildstorm book? And my answer was, probably, because there's other companies that recently tested the water to see whether or not a Warren Ellis book would be well received in this climate, and they found out no. The answer is no, but I don't think AT&T cares.
Yeah, so here's the thing with Warren Ellis, and this is the same for a lot of creators who are unpalatable to the modern consumer. Warren Ellis is radioactive. Everything radioactive has a half-life.
Yeah. There you go.
Sooner or later, like it or not, a company is going to be like, yes, we will publish Warren Ellis books, and yes, Warren Ellis books will get published. Regardless of whether or not he atones for the things that he's done.
Right. It will happen.
Yeah. Doesn't mean we're going to carry it.
Right. But then to the club member that I had to say, no, you can't give us a list of the creators you want.
Right.
They were responding to the weekly email in which 2 of the creators they named had new projects.
Yes.
But I said, you need to tell us specifically what you want,
Yes.
and they haven't responded. So I can make the assumption, oh, they want May's book, oh, they want Friday.
Right.
But I'm not doing that until they implicitly tell me these 2 books.
An affirmative response.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a weird thing where I feel like we're very clear on, like, here's what you need to do, and then people kind of don't do it. You had mentioned today that someone had come in for a book that they saw online that in turn we didn't have on the shelves. And while certainly I regret that, I don't want anyone to ever waste a trip. On the other hand, one of the things you can do on our website is not just search for what we have in stock, you can purchase it.
Yeah.
If I went to a store's website and they showed me their inventory, I would not make an entire trip there and then hope it was still on the shelves. Because a lot of things can happen between when I see it and when I go to the store. They might not have it in stock at all, as was the case with this thing for us. Someone could have bought it in the meantime. Like, if this person had bought it online, we would have given them a notification saying, yes, we have it in stock, it's already sitting aside for you, or, in this case, no, we don't have that and we've refunded you your money. The fact that someone would go to the trouble, going to our website, searching our inventory for a book they wanted, finding it, and then not buying it is so weird to me.
That's why I also said to a club member that if you find something you like on the website, we can't pull it for you. You have to buy it.
Yeah.
Because if we pull it, it messes up inventory. I mean, we had somebody put, like, 3 volumes of Boruto on hold today. And say, like, can you hold it until next week? And I just thought, I hope no one buys those over the weekend on the website.
Let's hope.
Because the quantities don't match, like, that specific instance.
Yeah, should we move over to Shopify POS? I think what we might start doing for instances like that to make sure the inventory is accurate across both the in-store and the online storefronts is maybe just when we do that, we just create a purchase order for that.
Okay.
We put that aside and then we put that person's name on it so that when that person comes in, when you take those books off a hold, we then go to Shopify, we find their name in the POS, we bring that ticket in, and then we ring it out that way.
Is this, and this is a
It's
question
little bit
I
more work,
just thought of that I don't know, it's not exactly what we're talking about, but does Shopify POS have the ability to do multiple transactions simultaneously?
How do you mean?
I mean, if I'm ringing you up and you forgot your wallet in your car and you need to go run out to your car, can I then ring up the next person while your transaction is still live?
I don't know. Should we be switching over to Managed Comics later in September? We'll definitely be getting Shopify POS before that to play around with it to make sure everything looks right. And to bring over certain items that we don't have in the online storefront that we would need for the in-store experience. Back issues, single bags and boards maybe, whatever. Although single bags and boards would probably end up on the online store at some point. And when we do that, we'll have the capability of going on our phones or going on your iPad and then playing around with it and saying, like, what can we do with this? How do we make that work? Like, in theory, yeah, you can do that with RMH already. So hopefully there's some way to save an order that's in progress and then
It has a name, but I forget what it's called. Put it on hold the transaction or something. But anyway, you get the point.
Yeah, I do.
I like that we keep saying, if we're switching over.
I try not to...
We don't like to talk in absolutes.
Yeah, and on top of
Because
that...
when you get your hopes on something...
For example?
Let's say starting on a specific day, it inevitably changes.
Yeah.
For example,
It's good to be flexible.
a carpet company may have to change the date multiple times.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
Just one random example.
Yeah, and when you get really excited about that, when it starts to move around, you try and be flexible, but at a certain point you're just like, now I'm just aggravated, and even when this thing resolves itself, to my satisfaction, there will always be this little thing of
a little resentment.
Why was I so angry? Why did something have to happen that made me angry? Yeah, I mean, certainly, like, I've talked a ton of times about Managed Comics and Shopify POS, and
I've listened.
And you've listened, it's true. But yeah, obviously, like, we're not there yet. We're very close, but we are not there yet. And until we're really at the point where it's like the program is live, we have purchased it or signed up for it or installed it, and we've set a time to migrate all of our data over and flip that switch and make it available to our subscribers, like, it's still a thing we might do. You know? I hope we do. I really do.
Picture Brian Garside hearing this right now going, come on, what have I got to do?
Release the product. All the things I just said. And it's not like, he doesn't have to work to our timeline.
Right.
You know? He's working as fast as he can.
We are working toward his.
Yeah, and obviously, like, do we...
And we want the product to be ready. We don't...
Right, to be clear.
Like, if he says, I need another month, fine, take another month.
Yeah, certainly the last thing we want to do, and certainly the last thing he wants us to do, considering he's mentioned that he listens to the podcast, is for us to use a product that is not ready to go yet, and that we have to apologize to our customers for. Like, that's a situation we absolutely do not want to find ourselves in.
Right.
And that would make us very...
sad.
Sad is a word, but I was really going more for very... there'd be a lot of discourse about it here on the podcast. We would be very vocal about it. We would not hide our displeasure. So yeah, certainly we want that to be ready to go. And in the meantime...
I think we would. For all the issues we had, say, hypothetically, with Comic Hub, it was all very... hey, it's just not what we're looking for. It didn't work to our specifications. We didn't drill down into minutia, nor were we venomous in our critique.
Yeah, I think we were even-handed as much as we could be.
Yeah.
That said, the situation with Comic Hub was very much us saying we did not realize this was a product that had a different outlook and goal than we had.
Yeah.
The thing with Magic Comics is it looks very much in the abstract like something that absolutely fits our store and fits our philosophies as far as like retail goes. So if it does not work, as opposed to isn't what we're expecting, that's a different podcast episode.
Sure.
That's very much that's us. That's a bad idea podcast episode where it's like, oh no, now we're mad. We're not disappointed. We're mad. So yeah, long story short, yeah, we will be very flexible as far as how a new point of sale system operates. And while we wish it were sooner, until it happens, it's still, maybe we're going to do it.
Yeah, sure.
Maybe.
It's just us trying to not get our hopes up, which, I mean, too late.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very excited about it. Obviously, I keep watching these live streams and I keep getting involved in the process and sending emails and stuff and, you know.
Staying up sleepless nights, imagining what if, what could be.
Champing at the bit, coming up with new things we could do with it, you know, if it works the way we want it to. But yeah, obviously, it's a computer program and it takes as long to build out as it needs to. And then once the users start using it, you find gaps in the process and you try and fill those. And then when it gets out to more stores, there's going to be more hands-on stuff. So yeah, our hope is later in September that we are and Managed Comics is at a point where that transition can take place.
I haven't seen anything from Variant Edition from Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, about how their data migration went.
Okay.
But to be honest, I wasn't really on Facebook at all today.
Sure, I can imagine.
I was very busy.
Yeah.
I was very busy doing a lot of things, and then other things got suddenly dropped in my lap.
Emergencies happen, unfortunately. I wish they didn't, but sometimes they do. If I could plan for them, I would.
I was trying to find an organic way to mention the walking weapon, Josh Alexander, because he's also from Canada.
He is, that's true. Ontario, I believe.
But it wasn't, calling it out like that is too...
Sure.
That's too crass.
That said, had a really good time at that AAW show at Logan Square Auditorium on Thursday night. Destination Chicago.
Kent had stopped by today.
Good call.
And I was trying to convey how brutal that match was.
So brutal.
But it's not, and I don't want to get into wrestling talk, but it wasn't
it's a wrestling
like barbed wire, baseball bats, or chairs or anything. It was just two big men beating the shit out of each other with their bodies.
Yeah, it was brutal like a marathon is brutal.
Yeah. It wasn't brutal
it's just
like,
an exertion.
He's got a broken bottle and he's slicing a dude's forehead open.
No, this was way better because it was just them 60 minutes taking it to the time limit of just wrestling. And, I mean, obviously, like, they went outside the ring and whatever. But it was...
Right, but they weren't picking up chairs and throwing chairs.
It was like chops.
They only hit each other with themselves.
Josh Alexander chopped Fred Yehai so hard, Fred Yehai, a large man, flipped over a railing.
Yeah. And I was trying to explain that to Kent. I'm like, well, let me just go to Twitter to see if anybody has those images. Yes, they do.
Of course they do.
So the things that we couldn't see real clearly, we got to see the chop over the guardrail. We got to see the chop off the stage.
I saw the chop over the guardrail. I was able to see that. And
you're taller than I am, Joe.
And I was in a slightly different angle for it. I was kind of right down the center for it. You were kind of blocked.
There was a guy
the
who
ring
was
post.
standing up in front of me, but to the right, so he was on that angle.
Sure. I mean, it's an amazing match. You had sent me a Twitter thing of my favorite moment, which was the aftermath of the match.
The show of sportsmanship for
Yeah.
two competitors who took each other to the limit.
Fred Yehai, was offering
The
his
current
hand.
AAW champion.
Was offering his hand to
Walking Weapon Josh Alexander.
who had not succeeded in taking the title from him. And there's a moment, and it's really great. And the best thing about it is if you look all the way to the left corner, people watching it wouldn't be able to tell, but I could tell that was me laughing my ass off.
Yeah.
You can see my head go all the way back. Because
And you start clapping right away.
It was amazing. It's
It's
the best.
You see my hands go up like, what?
It's the best button for a very good match. Like, the whole thing was great. The storytelling was great. The action was great. The athleticism was great. But that little moment of how the champ reacts to his challenger, so good.
And,
so
keep in mind, he didn't beat the challenger.
Yeah. He just succeeded in retaining his title. That's it.
So, wrestling lately brings you a lot of joy.
It really does. Me specifically, me?
Yes.
Yes, it's true.
Yeah. And I think it's because you are outside of the wrestling industry looking in.
Do you mean like I'm not a wrestler, or I'm not somebody who does like the dirt sheets and stuff?
All of those things.
Okay, both, yeah, sure.
Imagine if you were somebody who just read comics.
That would be pretty cool. I mean, certainly, like, there was a time, I think a week ago, where it was such an exhausting and aggravating Tuesday that I didn't even want to bring books home.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, I'm going to read these, and I'm going to be as angry about the process to get to the point where I could read them. But I did anyway, and I wasn't that angry by that point. It cooled off.
Right, and also the books kind of bring you back a little bit, but you don't want to hold against the material.
Of course.
Everything about it.
Sure.
When Kent was in, I was breaking down the 15th DC invoice.
Okay.
And he was looking over my shoulder, and he pointed out, he goes, there's only 13 titles.
Uh-huh.
Now look at that screen. Look at all those line items.
Uh-huh.
That's for 13 titles. Because now most DC titles have 3 covers.
Yeah.
Some of them have 5.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Like, we didn't get the blank cover, but we have the rest of them for this, whatever this book is launching. And there's so many...
Unreal.
When I'm breaking down the DC books, like, literally every cover, it seems, on a diamond invoice, it can't just say Amazing Spider-Man number 73. It has to say Amazing Spider-Man number 73, Sinwa for Sinister War, or who the cover is by. Mm-hmm. And DC does that all the time as well. It's cover A, let's say Batman, cover A, Jorge Jimenez. Mm-hmm. Cover B, Jenny Frizzle cardstock variant.
Yes.
So I will break it down and not put anything after cover A, just because that's the main cover we'll have on the shelf.
Yeah.
And then I'll just put Frizzin after, Batman 112 or whatever.
Sure.
But if there's 3 covers, I can't do that if their names aren't alphabetical, because when I resort it in Excel by alphabetical, it'll change which title is which.
Sure.
So I have to put A, B, and C for them.
Yeah.
Or if there's an incentive cover, I can't just say, incentive, because what if somebody has a last name beginning with a letter after I?
Sure.
Yeah. Then it's going to be out of order again, and I have to do more sorting. And those are just like tiny little things that don't matter to readers at all, nor should they. But it's just more time out of my day.
That's true.
And I imagine some people would prefer to know, well, who's doing the A cover, who's doing the B cover. But forgive me for using A again. A, you can look that up online. B, the cover we're going to have the most of, I'm not going to go out of my way to identify differently.
Sure.
And honestly, even if we just have the B cover for the shelf, I don't put that it's the B cover.
Yeah, part of the modern market that really bothers me is the idea that oftentimes the most important information you can give to a customer in store or online is who did the cover.
Right?
Like, that bothers me, and it maybe shouldn't, but it's just one of those, like, old school retailer things where it's like, who cares, man? Like, why does that make a difference? But it does to so many people, to so much of the market, to the majority of the market. Like, people are ordering specific covers. The whole reason we have pull box, basically, is so that we could more automate the process of people ordering variant covers. Because that was getting to be such a hassle that it was just like, here's a thing where you can just go online and pick the covers you want. And then we don't have to be annoyed by it until the week the books come in, and then you have to unpack them on Tuesday and go, God damn it.
Do you
Why
think
are there so many lines?
Do you think people would be happier just showing up and being like, oh, look at the cover on this book they ordered? Not like, I'll just take this one. Not having to fret over getting the exact cover they want, or...
Well, I mean, certainly I think for a lot of people, they anticipate specific cover artists. You know, we've got people who get all of, like, this, whatever Scotty Young variant there is, or whatever Jenny Frison variant there is,
Yeah,
or
some of this
whatever.
stuff is weird to me when you will get a Jenny Frison variant for a book that you don't read.
Mm-hmm. True.
Like, I get being a fan. She's an incredible artist and a great human being.
Sure.
But I'm not going to buy a comic that I don't read because she does the cover.
Yeah, because you can find that image online.
Yeah.
Probably in the original solicit where it's like, here's the cover for the book that she's doing.
Well,
and you can
probably
just go,
a couple weeks afterwards if it's a variant cover.
That's
you know,
true.
they won't have it on...
right-click, save as.
The data won't be available immediately. There were multiple times today I said to somebody, hey, just, you are aware this is the same issue, right? And every single time they're like, yeah, I know. I'm like, okay. I do this just so you don't get home and think, oh, I thought I was buying two separate issues.
Right.
I just want people to be clear. Like, I'm not trying to talk you out of it. I just want to make sure you know.
Yeah.
But I feel like I'm saying, why are you buying two copies? Like, when somebody was buying 2 copies of United States of Captain America #1 of the exact same cover, they want 2 copies.
Yeah, that's not an accident.
Fine. But when somebody was buying, like, 4 issues of Rorschach, or 2 issues of Rorschach, but 2 covers of each, ironically not the same person who had wanted to buy #1.
Weird.
Just a different thing. When I say, hey, you are aware that this is the same book, but just different covers? Yeah, they get me with those covers.
Okay.
I'm just making sure you don't get home.
Right.
And, like, I don't want to feel like I'm patronizing you, like, oh, you're too dumb to know that they're different things, but...
With Rorschach specifically, what I started doing to get the stacks to be still on the shelves and not fall forward onto the floor because of the thickness of the cardstock covers and how much they
open up.
Is that the cover A, the George Fornes cover A,
is one pile.
And then, like, the variants with the different trade dress is a second pile. So that they're, different stacks. But we've had people look at them and they're like, are these 2 different series? And it's like, no, the B cover has a completely different trade dress than the A cover. That's just what they look like.
And that's another reason to say, just so you know, these are different things.
Yeah.
Yeah, I never wanted to be like I'm condescending.
No, but you also don't want to deal with someone coming back in a week saying, I bought these and I didn't know they were the same book.
We have somebody who would routinely buy second prints and then the next week bring them back and be like, I didn't know it was second print. Even though every single Marvel book has a second print banner across the barcode.
Yeah, right at the top.
And it got to a point where I said, you can't return those anymore. If you do it once or twice, fine, but you can't do it. There's a attachment with a sticker from Robert Burns, but I can't see it. But I just wanted you personally to know that it can.
Thank you. Always glad to know.
How are you going to learn if we just keep... And also, you've taken a week of sales away from us for that book.
Yeah, and as we've mentioned a million times, the first week sales for any comic are 90% of our sales.
And we have a new release board right above the new releases, and if it's a second print, it'll say, I don't know.
Second.
Avengers,
PTG or
Hekon, #2, parentheses, second print, parentheses.
Right.
So it says it on the board. And I get it. It's hard to tell with variant covers and things.
Sure.
You might think, oh, it's a new issue, but They all say second print on them.
Yeah.
And once or twice, I get it. But when this is like your 9th time doing that...
Yeah, there's definitely a limit to our patience.
More limit to mine than yours, it seems. You are much better at coddling. I'll say coddling.
You can say that. It's fine. I don't mind.
It's not wrong.
No.
I mean, you wish it wouldn't happen, but it genuinely bothers me.
I know it does. Yeah. Which is why now at this point, when I ring up that particular customer, I do make sure to go through and, like, if I see anything that's a second print or variant in there, I'm like, hey, let's talk about this.
But that's just the point. You shouldn't have to, because they haven't learned.
Yeah.
And we're trying to impart knowledge like, oh, don't email us and say, oh, do you have this trade in stock? Go to our website and look. It'll be there if we have it.
Uh-huh.
Then you know it's there.
Yeah.
And you know we have it.
Yeah.
And if we don't have it, either it doesn't come up or it'll say sold out.
Yeah.
So you know we don't have it.
True.
That's all.
Yeah.
We had someone call today looking for, they wanted a pre-order, Rivers of London Volume 9.
Okay.
The problem with that is that Rivers of London stopped numbering at after Volume 7, and now they're all subtitles.
Titan.
So in the system, it's Monday, Volume 1, Rivers of London.
Ridiculous.
So it's Rivers of London, Monday is the name of this volume, this arc.
Yes.
And they do the miniseries.
Right.
And I'm talking to them through Gina. And I'm like, wait, so I'm trying to look it up. And like, do they want... Because I can't find it. Because I'm looking up the wrong things. Like, there's 3 single issues out now. And the person on the phone is like, I don't want the floppies.
Uh-huh.
Floppies was their usage. I'm like,
Sure.
I can't find... I didn't find what they wanted until after the phone call was over.
Right.
Because they... Like, the information is divvied up in a different way.
Yeah.
So the positive thing is that they pre-ordered a book that's coming out this Wednesday.
Okay.
So when they come in, I can say, hey, we can get you that book. It doesn't come out until December, but we couldn't find it in the system because of how it's labeled.
Yeah.
And I was going to call them back and say, hey, there's a thing there, but I'm like, I'm not going to do that.
Sure.
They'll be in Wednesday.
Sure.
That's fine. But that just goes back to either not having information or when we were talking about the way things are listed on the Penguin Random House invoices last week. Mm-hmm. It was fellow retailer Josh Crawley who had emailed in to say that he learned that it's actually the publishers that give those shortened codes to PRH to use.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me.
It doesn't surprise me at all, but it's also horrifying.
Yeah, it's dumb.
Here's a question, a procedural question for you, and I honestly got so swamped by the end of the day that I couldn't look it up, so I may be able to answer it, but...
Okay.
We got, in one box by itself, the DC poster book Joelle Jones.
Sure.
No invoice.
Right.
So can I just search like Joelle Jones and the distributor via email to see if that will come up in an order, or not, because it may be out of PDF and that wouldn't be aggregated data into an email?
No, I mean, you definitely can. We get... From PRH in particular, I think we get both, like...
A text and
eventual PDFs, and we get initially, like, a text email. But what we also could do, and what I would maybe do in the future, is go to Item Dashboard, scan it, and it'll... Like, there should be an open order on a list of all the orders we've ever gotten.
Oh, okay.
Like, the top one would be a V whatever... And then the last 4 digits would be that particular PRH order, and then you would just go to that one and then receive it through there.
Understood.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's just sitting on the back counter. But that was Gina saying, wow, look at this giant box for this one item.
Yeah, no, I mean...
But hey, it's not damaged!
Yeah, it's true.
Because of all the...
they squeaked that one in.
All that... The bubble wrap, I guess, that they put in, the big green bubble wraps.
I love the noise that makes, a little popping noise.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's funny because when she went to go get rid of the boxes, you could hear her popping them in the back hallway.
Sure. Hard not to laugh when you hear that sound.
I know.
Yeah.
It comes in a variety of sounds too.
Yeah.
But there were, from Simon & Schuster, there were like 5 damages, and I'm just like, let it go. I don't
Yeah,
care.
I almost feel bad because like we would usually be so specific with like Diamond. Like if anything wasn't like pristine or wasn't at least like I would have this in my own home, then it's like that's a damage. We want to credit. We want to return whatever. But like we're so used to books from Simon & Schuster and Penguin Random House and Hachette being mostly beaten to shit that like when they're only like slightly ruffled to shit, then we're like fine.
Yeah.
Fine.
Yeah.
Okay. Hopefully no one will care.
Let me put it this way. If it was a book I wanted, and there were 2 copies on the shelf, and one of them was in good shape, and one of them was like one of these beat-up books, I'd buy the good one.
Right.
If all they had was a beat-up one, I'd buy the beat-up one because I wanted it.
Yeah, I mean, the hope, as always, is that the audience that's getting stuff for graphic novels is more reader-oriented than collector-oriented,
Yeah.
and they don't care a whole lot. Like, they're not going to take as good a care of a graphic novel they buy as a collector would for a comic they bought that week. You know, they're not going to put their one-piece graphic novel in a bag and a board. It's going to go in, like, a backpack or in a purse.
I'm so confused by every person that wants a bag and a board for a graphic novel.
Yeah,
It always boggles my mind.
that's usually a pretty perplexing conversation to have when someone's like, what size are the graphic novel bags to store them in? And it's like, they're not, because they're not one size, and also people don't do that.
Like, if you want to bag your trades, fine, but bag and board them? What extra stability is that thin piece of cardboard going to give?
Yeah. Doesn't seem worthwhile. But, I don't know.
Speaking of cardboard, we keep hearing more and more of impending cardboard shortages, and then I look at
All
the
sorts
amount
of
of
shortages, yeah.
wasted cardboard we get just today.
Yeah.
Just from today's like that giant box for that one book.
Yeah.
That how is that cost effective?
Well, I think...
I would like to just have somebody like drop these books off, like instead of getting them from UPS, have a representative from each of these distributors show up and be like, "Here's the books." We'll go, "Okay, we'll unpack them. Here, take the boxes back."
That would be cool.
Or the way Friendly Franks used to do comics was they would give you your comics in long boxes. Then you have a long box when it's done,
That's pretty cool, too.
right?
Did Friendly Franks really do that?
Yeah.
That's a really good idea.
All their books were hand delivered by a guy in a van with in a long box.
Very cool.
Yeah. Or long boxes,
a little
obviously,
bit more
depending on
messy.
how much you yeah. And like I don't know, I think you had to pay for the box, but whatever.
Sure.
And you can use the box after that.
Yeah, I mean, certainly more than we would use the stuff that we've got. It just goes in... I mean, we can't reuse any of the diamond boxes anymore. At least once upon a time we could.
We could. Now we can't.
Now they're all just recycling. That's it. The
Yep.
end. Maybe someone can use them when they're moving.
Yeah, but even so, it's like, oh, if you don't pick them up Wednesday, we kind of hate you.
Oh, yeah. I mean, certainly now that more people are using the back hallway, it feels really inconsiderate to just have, like, a pile of boxes there.
When we had that corner free,
Right.
that was a little bit more
Now
of
it's
a...
next to someone's lunch table.
Yeah, I mean, we are always having to make adjustments for other people, whether it be plants on a gangway or cars that aren't there
Right.
or shouldn't be there, or it's the old, oh, you can't pull down your alley because there's a utility truck
Yeah.
or something like that. But those things are now more and more commonplace and more every day, so you just have to adapt around it as opposed to shouting into the void at it.
Yeah, I mean...
You can still get angry, but just shouting
getting mad is
isn't
natural.
enough.
Yeah, there's a point where you have to realize that there is no solution beyond just, enduring it. That's kind of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this past Tuesday and Wednesday, if memory serves, was not nearly as frustrating as last week's. I don't know if you had a different read on that. You did a ton of physical labor on Wednesday, so you might have a different outlook on this than I did.
I did, but it did make the day go faster, and it made you have to do a lot more of the ringing up, and that's why at the end of the day, when you're like, no, we still did this much, I'm like, did we really?
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, that's because I wasn't paying attention.
Exactly. It didn't happen on top of a ladder.
But I was very happy to get all that work done because I thought, like, even today, I thought it wouldn't be done yet.
So it was
By now.
raining today, I think, right? I thought I heard rain.
Oh, it was drizzle.
So nothing that you saw inside the store?
No. It has to rain
It's got to pour.
harder than an like, obviously thunderstorms, sure, but like if it's just a light rain or just what you call rain, it's not going to affect us. It's got to be a storm.
Yeah. Or like Bob Mould would say, sheets of rain.
Yeah. Even black sheets of rain.
Yeah.
He might.
If I was quoting him, I would say that. If I was paraphrasing him, I'd say sheets of rain.
Actually, if you were quoting him, he'd say black sheets of rain.
It's true.
I was going to do it, but I won't. I don't want to get sued. We don't have rights to that song.
No.
We can't afford that
Copyright
song.
strike on Contest of Challengers, Comics Industry Business Podcast in Chicago.
I feel personally that I've had a lot of bad customer service experiences in the last week, and
you mean the recipient of bad customer service?
Yes.
Okay.
Not I've had, not I've given.
Sure.
And honestly, like if I'm giving you bad customer service, it's because I feel you deserve it.
It's always intentional.
Yeah, but there was a point where I was just so angry in an establishment that I had given hundreds of dollars to that I just, like, not lifetime, just that particular purchase.
Yeah.
That I just had to leave. Like, I just want to start screaming, and it's not, even though this person isn't solving it, it's not their fault.
But at the same time, there's a level at which it's like, why can't someone here solve this problem? Like, the idea that certain low-level employees, they don't have the autonomy to be able to say, you're right, this is dumb and we should fix this. But when even, like, people higher up are like, this is dumb, also I can't do anything about this. Like, there needs to be an in-store person who can say, yeah, let's make an exception or let's disregard this procedure because it is not helping the process. Like, you know, we obviously have the ability as the two owners of the store at any time to say, yes, that's our rule, but we will waive it at this time because it is not what you need to hear as a human being and it's not what we want to represent as a store.
For example, someone ordered a specific enamel pin from our website today. When I went to pull that order, I realized, oh, it's the wrong pin. Only the image that's on our website corresponds to a pin that we have never carried. So it's not what they would have wanted.
Yeah,
and
the image that we had gotten from Diamond because we ordered it from Diamond was not what the pin ended up looking like.
And so the weirdest part about that, because I tried to do some digging, is the image of the pin on the website is a pin that exists. I just couldn't find the other pin on there, like our actual pin. I couldn't find on their website.
Crazy.
Like, if you go to Previews World, it shows you all the Vampirella pins. It doesn't show ours, which we got from Diamond.
Yep.
So the one that's the picture up there, that exists as a pin, just it's not a pin we've ever ordered.
Crazy.
So I feel like if we were a larger chain, they would have just canceled and refunded the order.
Or they would have just sent it out and gone, that's what it is. That's the SKU.
Yeah, right? Something like that. But I emailed the guy, or the person. I don't know for a fact it was a guy. I don't know why I said that. It was a guy. It's a Vampirella pin. So I emailed them and said, hey, I'm really sorry. The pin that we have isn't that. Here is a picture of the pin we have. I didn't take that picture. I scoured the internet because I didn't want to have to take a photo, upload it, and then pull it back down from the cloud.
Sure.
But I found the pin we had, and I'm like, do you want this one or do you want a refund? And they got back to us in a very timely manner and said, yeah, I'll take that one.
Which is great. That certainly worked out for us.
It'll work out for them too if mail ever comes to take it away, but it's only been a few hours, you know.
Sure.
It hasn't been like 4 days.
True.
So I was very happy. I'm also very, very surprised that they would buy a $10 pin and pay $8.50 in shipping.
Yeah, boy, oh boy.
Yeah. I mean, that is a point where if someone complained to us, we'd be like, that's how the system is set up. We can't change that.
Like, eventually, I would think we would go in and be a little bit more on top of that and create a lot more rules and stuff for different categories.
And we do have that hope that we'll be able to do that.
Right. But at the same time, like, there's things that are on our website where it's like, I just assume that people would buy this in conjunction with other things.
Right.
Or just pick it up in the store. Like, the idea that someone would say, oh, I just want that one pin mailed to me is like, that's it?
Yeah.
You sure? But this person did. Okay.
And they didn't complain. And I thought for sure that they'd be like, oh man, I didn't realize it was $8.50 shipping. Yeah, I'd love to cancel that. Like, no, I'll take that. I'll take this other one. Thanks for asking. No. I'm like, oh man.
And like, I usually
you got it.
I usually don't care if it's like a comic book because the people who are ordering like a $4 comic book and paying $8 shipping, it's like, That book is selling for $30 online, probably. That's why you don't care about the shipping.
Oh, here's a great one. There was somebody waiting outside. I got there early. I knew that Gina was going to be in early. So I tried to get there a little bit early because while she has the ability to come into the store on her own, she usually waits for me to let her in.
Okay.
So I thought, I'll get there a little bit earlier. And there was a guy just like standing outside the door, like looking at his watch. And Gina was there, but she was much further back because she didn't want to be this guy.
Sure.
So she texted me a picture, and she's like, this guy's been here for a while, and I think he keeps calling the store.
Wow.
And this is me being me. I was in and ready, and I just stood at the door waiting until my watch stood 11 before I let him in.
Posted hours.
Yeah, exactly. He had a Werewolf by Night on hold from the website that he was waiting to pick up.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And he's like, do you have more of these? And I just said, nope. Maybe. I didn't look. I don't care.
Yeah.
I know why you want that.
He's going to be in a Disney
Yeah,
Plus
I did say,
project.
as soon as they announced that there was going to be a Disney Plus project for this, people snapped them all up. I don't know why.
Suddenly.
I guess they're really excited to read this book.
People love Taboo.
Couldn't even remember that person's name.
It's the only name I can
I kept saying,
that book.
I don't know, a Black Eyed
Scott
Pea or
Eaton,
someone.
I think is the artist, maybe. Yeah, I remember reading that first issue and being not into the...
Underwhelmed.
Yeah, underwhelmed is a very charitable way of putting it. That guy, so he ordered the book, we had it, set it aside, messaged him through Shopify to say, hey, we got your book and it's waiting for you. Calls up the next day, yeah, I ordered, and he tells me the book he ordered, and it's okay, sure. I'm not going to be able to come and get that for a few days. Can you hold it? I'm like, yeah, you paid for it. It'll just sit aside until you can come get it. Okay. Do you need to know the information? No, I don't. It's a book you ordered and you paid for. It's fine. Like, I don't need to know your name. Like, it's fine. He was very concerned that, like, a book he paid for would suddenly, like, find its way back on the shelf if he didn't come in just a couple days. And it's like,
Yeah, he was
who would do that?
overly prepared.
Who?
Oh, I'm sure places. He was overly prepared. Because when people come in and say, I'm here to pick up a book, I have to say, are you a club member? Is it on hold, or did you buy it off our website? I bought it online? Okay, great. What's your name? Gives me the name. Okay, I go to grab it. Yeah, so it's order number blah. I'm like, it's okay, man. I got it.
There's been a couple of times where people are like, do I need to show you my ID? No, I'll take your word for it. It's fine. We're not frequently having people coming in claiming to be other people and picking up orders. There's almost no way
you know that somebody had a Werewolf by Night #1 on hold, and you just guessed, you can have it.
That'd be insane.
Yeah, you've earned it.
Yeah. I will refund the other person and apologize.
Now we're going to have people...
While also saying, you wouldn't believe it.
We're going to have people walking in now being like, yes, hello, I have a Hulk 181 on hold that I ordered on the website. Just see what happens.
My name is Herb Trimpey.
I would let him do that. I don't have that book to give him,
No.
but I would let him ask for any book he wants.
Sure. Tough for him to do these days, probably.
I know, but that's why I'd let him do it.
Yeah.
I'd be scared to death. He'd be,
Yeah.
beyond the grave.
Yeah. That's his unfinished business, is wanting to give Hulk 181.
From us specifically, that he bought off our website.
Uh-huh.
It's a new month, and it's now time to thank our Patreon supporters, including our annual patrons, Becca Hilburn, Brent Helt, Dal's mom Diane Bush, Jose Villagomez, Josh Crawley of Westfield Comics, Michael Romanenko, our patrons that have created their own tier, Andrew Drewtroit Comics Aaliyah, Christina McChrystal, Bridget K. Neville, Chris Burton, our other generous patrons from the Say My Name tier, Arun Singh, Social Media Vampire Ben-Hur Benedict Calaguas, Bradley Raider, Brian Garside from Manage Comics, Chris Carr, Christopher Haith, Drew Triner and Ashley Edwards, Challengers Reservist Fallon Mackerleen, my brother George W. Brower, Heidi D., Jacob Sorelli of Kamikaze in Tel Aviv, from 11 O'Clock Comics, Jason Wood, Josh Trigg, Mark Hammond of All Yeah Comics, Margie, Keith, Logan, and Malcolm Springham, Marcus Nasso, Matt Armstrong, Mitchell Davies of All Star Comics in Melbourne, Australia, Molly Jane Kramer, Morgan Kaiju Perry, Nick Baldwin, Robert Burns, Ryan Alcock, Ryan Hecht, Sean Bowers, Tad Eggleston and Johnny Williams, Thomas Nagovin of Century Guild. And if you would like to hear your name thanked once a month on this very podcast, head over to patreon.com/challengers and pledge at the $5 Say My Name level. Thank you all very much, and a big thanks to all of our other patrons who generously support this podcast at different pledge tiers. I got to do a quick, let me stop right there. We don't do any buying on a phone call today.
Great.
Because they had about 900 really good comics.
Mm-hmm.
Let me stop right there.
I'm sorry, we only buy the bad comic books.
Isn't that all of them? It depends on how many covers they have.
I don't know. There's good stuff lately. What did I read lately that I liked? What's the Furthest Place from Here? I really enjoyed. I thought that was a very solid first issue. I was a little dismayed to read in a recent Matt Rosenberg email that they had to print the 7-inch record edition in advance of initial orders.
Yeah, because otherwise they never get it.
Yeah, because that's how long it takes to make
vinyl.
vinyl
Is very rare nowadays.
Yeah, so basically there are 3,000, which means I can't even guarantee that we're going to have standing orders ready for that book.
Because there are only 3,000, people are going to start ordering it.
Oh my God, yes.
Yeah. Well, I want 300, please.
Yeah, I mean, I would probably have ordered us 10 or 15 for the shelf because it's this seems like a really cool thing to have.
Yeah.
And he kind of hinted at they will have a solution for people who want these songs or whatever. I wouldn't be surprised if they did a second print with a digital download or something.
Sure.
Just to get those songs out there into the world for people who would gladly support the project, but
the
can't
Dark
get the
Knight's
vinyl.
Death Metal LP had the same problem where they had to print it well in advance, and it turns out that if you ordered it through a record store, you got basically your full order, but if you ordered it through Lunar, you got allocated heavily.
Sure.
So people are furious about that, because there are stores that ordered 100 copies and got one.
Sure. Rosenberg said for this one that they were getting people saying, there are record stores that will carry this, and he's like, no, I want you to go to a comic shop.
That's great.
So the only place you can get the 7-inch version of What's the Furthest Place from Here is comic shops.
Matt Rosenberg is a guy that's worked at a comic store. He knows what it's like, but he also has been in the writer trenches for a while.
Yeah.
But always goes above and beyond trying to get people to go to comic stores and trying to help the direct market.
Yeah.
And he sent an email this week basically saying, what do you want me to do for your store specifically to help you sell this book? And he lists all these things that he would do, and I thought, man, that is so much extra work for any creator.
Right.
I can't believe that he's offering to do it. And we took him up a couple years ago on a store video for when he was doing Hawkeye.
Mm-hmm.
That Hawkeye series was a lot of fun. Him and Otto Schmidt.
Yeah,
it was a
for sure.
good book.
I dug it.
And he did I believe it was around Christmas, and he'd been sick.
Mm-hmm.
So he still goes out and does I say out because it was done outside, does a video specifically for challengers, mentioning the store a couple of times. It was a good, a minute video, which is a lifetime for videos on the internet, really.
And talking about Hawkeye as well.
Yeah.
Jesus.
And I love that he did it, and I don't know, and I added a little, I dropped in the book at certain points, and I had a cool arrow hitting a target sound effect.
Yes.
Just to make it a little bit more fun. Or Stephanie Phillips did the same thing for us recently.
Right.
And I did the same thing. I'm like, here's the book, here's some additional stuff. I edited a little bit to make it run a little smoother. I try to always cut out creators' ums and ahs and things to make it smooth.
Sure.
And I don't know that either of those videos got a single person to be like, I want to try that book.
I think Hawkeye maybe might have, but we were doing a bunch of promotional things for Hawkeye at that point, so it's hard to tell what specifically would have moved the needle.
Yeah, I really question our buy this book or Dad will shoot you with an arrow.
Well, it's a good threat. I mean, I'll do it for any book. I mean,
Yeah.
it doesn't have to just be a Hawkeye. I'll shoot people with arrows for any reason. Here's a good and a bad thing for Matt Rosenberg, since we're talking about it. One of the things he's done for retailers over the years when conventions were a thing was that if he was coming to a town for a show, you could, if you were a store and you had Matt Rosenberg books, you could bring them to him at the show and he would just sign them there for you to take back to your store.
Yeah.
which is always a very cool, like, additional thing. Like, he can't necessarily come to your store to sign all these books, but if you've got his X-Men stuff or whatever, bring it to him, he'll sign it. And I thought that was always a very cool offer to make. Here's the thing that he did, that he talks about in that promotional email for What's the Furthest Place from Here, that I was like, I wish you had made the opposite decision. He talks about how the book was originally going to release prior to the pandemic. Like, they were scheduling it for, like, early 2020, and then the pandemic hit, and it's like, well, this is probably not a great time to launch this when Diamond is not operational. And we don't know what stores are going to look like, and stores are operating, in shutdowns, and it's like, it didn't seem like a good time to launch it, so obviously you wait until 2021, and then things look a little better, and you have a little bit more confidence that you can drive people to stores with this project without worrying that A, stores won't be open, or B, people shouldn't leave their homes. Obviously, the Delta variant changes the calculation slightly, and wherever you live could be a different scenario. But in general, like, that was the idea, was that they had planned this well in advance. So he talked about how they had all these variant covers. And the idea was to make them all fully returnable, because that was what Image was doing, until Diamond changed their rules on what can be fully returnable. And the idea is, if it's got more than 2 covers, it can't be made returnable through Diamond. That's something we've complained about before. So they decided to stick to the variant covers and then not make it returnable. And I thought, I wish you had not done that. Yeah. I wish you had pared it down to 2 covers for the first one, made it returnable, and then reused the covers for, like, 2nd and 3rd and 4th and 7th prints or whatever.
Yep.
Or future issues of the series. I get sort of why you made that decision, but man, like, if I could stress one thing to every publisher and every creator is, I get Diamond's rules made things more difficult, and it made you have to choose between variants and returnability. Please choose returnability. I will order more copies of something if it's a variant. I will order the most copies of something if it's returnable. Like, we mentioned it for, like, Primordial or something else, but, like, looking at What's the Furthest Place from Here, I really like the first issue. But when you have, like, 7 covers, it's like, okay, I'll probably order 30 or 40 of cover A and maybe 5 to 10 of the alternate covers, depending on what pre-orders look like for those books.
But if it was one cover, what would you have done?
If it was one cover fully returnable, I would have ordered like 150 copies. I would have gone so hard on that book because I think it's really good, but it's like, I literally cannot afford to take an aggressive position like that if it's not returnable. I just can't. If I guess wrong, that's a lot of money that I'm not going to recoup. So I have to be more conservative about how I approach that book. The variant covers makes it more than if it were one cover non-returnable, but it doesn't make it as much as it would have been if it would have been one cover returnable or 2 covers returnable.
Same thing with House of Slaughter.
Yeah, exactly. Like, once that happens, it's like, okay, well, my number is going to be a fraction of what it would have been if it was returnable. That is how it works. The flip side of that is, if you make it returnable, my initial order is multiples of what it would have been if it's non-returnable. And occasionally, yeah, it's something like Berserker, where it's like, well, the number we ordered was massive, and it did not hit that, and a lot of those covers go back. But at a point, like, I think the publisher expects that for certain projects.
Yeah, and you can't dangle the
a 1 in 1,000
golden
variant.
carrot 1 in 1,000 variant in front of retailers and say, by the way, it's returnable, without us all saying, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And we held on to way more copies of that book than you wanted me to.
A lot.
And we still returned well over half.
Yeah, a lot. Including variant covers where it's like, no one's going to care.
Yeah.
So yeah, that part was a little disappointing, and I wish that had been a different decision Matt Rosenberg made, was less covers but full returnability. That's a trend that I am frustrated by as things are changing in the industry, is that it seems like the bet now is on variant covers and incentive covers rather than returnability, and there was a window there in the pandemic where there was so much returnability. And I mean, look, I'll be honest with you, it's hard to say exactly why stores are doing as well as they are in the last 18 months when so many things look like headwinds that instead were huge boosts to us. But I think one of the big things is that a lot more returnability was made available to retailers, and that made retailers who had every reason to be conservative about their orders be very aggressive about their orders. And the lack of that now is, I think, maybe going to be a thing that could be a detriment to the industry, is suddenly these books are non-returnable and everyone's going to be making different calculations when they're doing their initial orders. And I hope creators and publishers are aware of that as a possibility.
Sure. Yeah.
But they probably don't care because they're going to have a Peach Momoko variant. It's going to be fine.
Yep.
They're going to do a 1 in 250 signed Todd McFarlane cover that'll sell for $2,000.
It'll all be part of their event books and things.
Yeah, pretty much.
As long as it's a new number 1 that's part of 26 covers, we're good.
Yeah.
That's what the industry needs to survive.
Exactly. More Stormbreakers variants.
Please. It doesn't... quality doesn't matter. It's just the number of variant covers.
Yeah, pretty much. Like I said, it's frustrating that the most important question for a lot of consumers is who does the cover.
Well, you can always rely on the fact that under the cover of this podcast, it's always going to be the same people complaining about the industry.
Yeah, endlessly.
I was going to not say complaining, but I'm like, no, I'm just going to put complaining because
Let's
that's
just
what it
do
is.
it. Plant that flag.
That's talking about the industry, but unfortunately, there's too many things that we don't like compared to what we do like.
Yeah, again, I mean, we talked about a book that was really good and we really liked, and yet suddenly there's a bunch of hurdles to maximize the audience
sales
for that
potential
book.
for that book. Yeah.
Not even the sales potential, but the audience. Like, you know, obviously we'd love to sell more copies, but we'd love to make more people aware of it, and we do that by selling copies.
Man, you know what doesn't make sense to me as far as that kind of stuff goes? Dark Ages.
Okay.
We've got 2 copies left.
Yeah.
How can we sell out of a book that nobody ordered?
And I went up pretty hard on FOC.
You did, and I'm like, man, come on.
Uh-huh. Tom Taylor, dude, he's very good at coming up with like a good concept. And I know what you're going to say. Maybe people find out about the concept somehow. I don't know. I don't know.
I don't know. It's also...
We already had someone drop it on Pullbox, by the way.
Yeah, there we go.
That first issue.
That cover, by the way, is garbage.
Oh, yeah. I kept
It's
looking
like
at
that
it. Like,
Justice League cover. Like, oh, you're going to lighten that up when it's time for the release, right? That's just like, you're teasing that cover. No, that's the cover.
yeah, that just reminded me of every bad Mike Diodato superhero team cover.
Yeah.
I keep seeing Mike Diodato, and it's like, no, it's the guy who draws the interior.
Yeah.
That's just how Mike Diodato would do it.
Let's take all these heroes and then
Lit them
put
from
them in
behind.
darkness.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not... I like the concept of Dark Ages as a series. I didn't enjoy the first issue very much because it's like... The premise of the book is literally the last page of the comic book.
Yeah.
And that was like, man, if I got trust in Tom Taylor and I felt kind of let down in this, I can't imagine the people who are like, this looks like a good book are going to... Again, somebody already dropped it. They didn't find enough in issue 1 to feel like coming back for issue 2, so that pacing, that plotting was not a really great idea.
I can't remember if it was Dark Ages number 1 or not, but there was a book, there's a Marvel event book recently that was $4.99 and only had 20 pages of art and story.
Oof.
And it wasn't even a book that had 5 sketchbook pages. Like at least Empire would give you stuff in the back.
Was it Sinister War, maybe?
Garbage, but it might have been.
Maybe.
But it's like, why is this book $4.99? It's not even a cardstock cover.
No.
It's just 20 pages, but it's $4.99.
Yep. You pay the premium because it's a hot concept or series.
Yeah.
Or an event
I think
book.
anybody who was reading Amazing Spider-Man could have skipped Sinister War entirely and just read
I wish I had.
Amazing Spider-Man and been fine.
Yeah, I mean, certainly for a franchise in Amazing Spider-Man where people are feeling like maybe they're being taken advantage of by Marvel by how often that book comes out.
In the first...
Yeah.
So, in their brand newer day, whatever you want to call it, Beyond
Spider-Man Beyond.
Spider-Man Beyond, where they said, it's 3 times a month, they immediately have to do a Point Beyond issue to get you to 4 times a month.
Technically, it's a Point Bay issue, so it could be a Point Beyonce issue. Which I think would warrant an additional special issue if Beyonce was either in it or worked on the creative team. Maybe Beyonce, after all these years, is like, you know what I really wanted to do? Ink.
I've read Werewolf by Night, and I think Taboo, he's got the right idea.
There's a John Leguizamo book coming out from Image where it just looks like they drew John Leguizamo in it as like a buff superhero, and it's like, I don't know that's ever looked like John Leguizamo, but okay, sure.
I thought he was chubbier with blue face paint and like a white mohawk because he's the clown from Spawn.
That's right. Yeah.
That's what I was doing.
I get it. Okay.
We've worn out our welcome. Thanks for listening.
Keep reading comics.
This has been Contest of Challengers. Thanks for listening. Keep reading comics. Challengers is located at 1845 Northwestern Avenue in the Bucktown neighborhood of Chicago. 773-278-0155. Keep up to date with new releases and events at challengerscomics.com. Like Challengers Comics on Facebook, follow @Challengers on Twitter, and help fund this podcast at patreon.com/challengers.